simply being able to bounce back. It's actually being able to bounce back better. able to bounce back. It's actually being able to bounce back better.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to EMDRCM Live. This is an outreach of the Executive Master in Disaster Risk and Crisis Management from the country's premier graduate school for business and management, the Asian Institute of Management. My name is Wally Panganiban, and tonight, episode 13, we are very happy to have with us two distinguished gentlemen from the province of Masbate. But before we introduce them or ask them to introduce themselves, I just like to remind everybody to please join our Viber community. You can check out the link in our Facebook page. You can find information and updates about disasters and other um events that's unfolding related to EMDRCM in the Viber community. There are also some activities that the management group of the page, the Viber community, um, has set up for all of those who will be participating. It's also a great way of finding out the next episode of EMDRCM Live. Okay, so this evening, we are going to be talking about a particular area and how it manages the disaster risks and the disasters that happen in that area. So, with me tonight are two of the nicest and more passionate members of cohort one. So, I'll ask them to introduce themselves, maybe starting with Sir Juni.
Hi, Wally. Good evening. Good evening to everyone who's in tune for the EMDRCM Live.
And the other gentleman, also from Masbate. Sir Al.
Hi, Wally. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi.
There you
Good
go.
Hello.
evening, sir.
Good evening to Wally and to everyone.
Right. So, Sir Juni, you are currently live streaming from Masbate
From mainland
City.
Masbate, yes, from Masbate.
Okay. Okay. And Sir Al, where are you right now, Sir Al?
I'm in Claveria, Masbate po.
Okay, Claveria.
Tapos, yeah,
Sir Juni is actually the OIC of the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, while Sir Al is the Municipal Disaster Risks and Management Office, right?
yes, sir.
that's right.
Okay. So before we go into the disaster discussion, let's talk about Masbate and Claveria in general. So Sir Juni, maybe you can tell the people watching, especially those who are not familiar with the Philippines, a little something about Masbate.
All right, Masbate is one of the 6 provinces in Bicol region. Geographically, Masbate is at the center of the Philippines. We have pristine beaches. For tourism, actually, we were so excited during summer, although because of COVID that didn't happen. We have about 1 million population.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly all the barangays are at the coastlines. And then we also have agriculture as one of the major industries in the province.
Right. I've been reading up on Masbate and I discovered that you are second to Bukidnon in terms of cattle production.
Yes, yes. Actually, Masbate is known as the rodeo capital of Asia. Um, every April, we have the Rodeo Masbateño festivities. Well, as I've said, unfortunately, that was canceled this year
Well,
because of COVID.
there's hope that we can go back to that once this pandemic is behind us. And Sir Al, what about Claveria? What can you tell us about Claveria?
Well, Claveria is one of the, 21 municipalities in the province of Masbate. It's an island municipality, Brias Island. Basically, we are an led municipality. But most of the inhabitants, the working ones would go to the mainland cities of Manila, Metro Manila rather, and even as far as Cebu to look for jobs. We are a third class municipality also.
Right. Okay. So these two gentlemen are part of the cohort, and it's quite interesting because they bring with them their wealth of experience in actual frontline work as local disaster risks and management officers. So let's go deep dive into the conversation for tonight, and it's all about this question: How are disasters or disaster risks managed in Masbate City? So let's ask Sir Juni first. What are the aside from the pandemic or even before the pandemic, what are the usual disaster risks that you are monitoring in that part of the Philippines?
Being part of Bicol region, of course, we have the hazard that we have, it's typhoon, and then we also have earthquake, and then we also have flooding, those sort of things. Well, being part of Bicol, as I've said, name every hazard, we have it in Bicol region.
Right. So you're constantly bombarded, especially during typhoon seasons. Last year, you were hit by Typhoon Ursula and Tisoy.
That's right. In December, we were hit by two consecutive typhoons in a span of 2 weeks. So you haven't even recovered from the first typhoon, which is Tisoy, and then here comes another one, that typhoon Ursula. So we were badly hit by those two typhoons. And in terms of damage, we have about more than 1 billion worth of damage for those
More
two
than a
typhoons
billion
alone.
just for the two typhoons.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Sir Al, what about you? Is Claveria, I think, is one of the smaller in terms of population municipalities in Masbate. Is that right?
Yeah, we are around more or less 50,000 po, our population in Claveria. And basically, as what Sir Juni had said, we are typhoon prone.
What
And
was the impact to you in Claveria during the last typhoon last December?
we were hardest hit by Tisoy. And more or less, our damages would be around 250 million.
That's a lot considering that it's a relatively agricultural community, right, Sir Al?
Yeah, and our ERA is only about 135 million per year. So it's almost twice our ERA, the damages to that
Wow.
Tisoy has brought
Okay.
a lot.
Yep. And so with the COVID currently affecting all of our uh, lives, that the risk of the typhoons during the typhoon season, of course, is heightened and elevated. So let's now proceed to discussing about this particular pandemic and how it's impacted the particular province. So, Sir Juni, maybe you can give us a brief overview of how this pandemic has affected Masbate.
Well, Masbate is an island province, no, and as an island province, we depend on most of the merchandise, um, and from the mainland, and then also most of, or not most, but many Masbateños are working outside of Masbate. The students are studying outside of Masbate, even. Some residents are working outside of Masbate. With the pandemic, with the lockdown, with the restraint on
Mhm.
movement, so we really had a problem on the stranded individuals, on the economy, and then tourism, and then also on the cargoes that are coming in and out of the province.
Right. And you mentioned that there are 4 ports.
Oh, those ports are just the ports of entry that were allowed during the pandemic, or at least in sometime in May. and June. But
To
for
clarify, Sir Juni, how many are there in all?
Nako, there are about most of the towns have their own ports. We
Oh,
have
kasi
about the
given the
last time we
coastal,
counted.
right?
Yes, the last time we counted major ports aside from these four major ports, about 11, I think, to 14. I even lost count.
Okay. Okay, so with the pandemic and the quarantine, only four are operational.
For the returnees and for the cargoes, we only allowed those ports of entry because it's hard to monitor if all of the ports will be open.
Right, right. And it's also going to take its toll because it will require manpower from your end. We seem to have lost Sir Al. We're having some connectivity issues from where he is, so we will try to see if we can get him back. So while waiting for Sir Al, Sir Juni, maybe we can also deep dive into this particular area that you shared with me yesterday about the issues that you are experiencing in facilitating this particular ports of entry into Masbate.
Yeah, that's right. Because of the influx of Masbateño returnees. So we really have to monitor all the ports, those ports that the four ports. I'm overseeing the three ports, or actually of the four ports, but the three ports are in the mainland. So we have delegated the two ports to the municipal DRRMOs, the mainland, and then Al is in charge of the fourth port in Claveria, Burias. The challenge actually is on the coordination of returnees, and then as well as on the capacity of the quarantine facilities versus the influx, the number of returnees that are coming back. Especially after a month of opening those ports, our quarantine facilities are really in full capacity or even above full capacity. So with the overcrowding, there's already a problem of, how do you implement social distancing, the hygiene inside the quarantine facilities, and then the monitoring also. So there's really a problem on the influx of returnees. And then on top of that, of course, you have to consider also, now that we're no longer COVID free, um, we also have to think of the infection control. So what happens when, let's say, one LSI or a locally stranded individual who's currently quarantined will be infected, and if there's an overcrowding, how do you contain the virus? So that's really the problem that we're encountering now, the influx of returnees.
Sir Juni, just to clarify that point, and especially for those who are not familiar with the way that's been set up in the Philippines, what is the protocol? How does one go about returning to Masbate coming from, let's say, Cebu or Manila or mainland Bicol?
Right now, every LSI or a locally stranded individual needs to secure a barangay certification from where he is stranded, and then he also have to get the medical clearance certificate from the city or the municipal health office. And then after that, you go to the PNP, to the Philippine National Police, or the Joint Task Force COVID Shield, or the Regional Task Force COVID Shield, or PTF, or Provincial Task Force COVID Shield in the case of the provinces. So you have those three documents, and then after that, you can actually go home already.
But do you need to coordinate with the local government units, let's say the province of Masbate or the municipalities where they intend to go back to?
Yes. We are actually, the LGUs are actually not just in Masbate, but also in other LGUs. We are requesting that for LSIs, or for those locally stranded individuals to come home, you need to at least be able to talk to your municipal or to your provincial DRRM offices, because you need to know if you will be accommodated at the quarantine facilities, or if the quarantine facility is not full. If you don't coordinate, you'll have a problem, because one, you need to be fetched at the port of entry. If you did not coordinate, you coordinate, and then your name's not on the list, So you'll have a problem because you'll not be allowed to go out of the port. So there's really a problem on that issue on that because one, as an LGU, how do you um, manage the LSIs, the number of LSIs that are coming to you, and for your budget also. So if you don't coordinate, uh, we won't know. We won't know who's coming back, and how many will be fetched at the port. And then some of them also, they don't even send their documents to us. So we're actually requesting that they coordinate with the LGUs where they're going home to.
Right. So, and you wouldn't also know when they will be going home.
That's right. That's right. Not all of them coordinate. So if you don't coordinate, you'll never know. You'll never know who's coming back on that day or on that week.
So, what's been the craziest number so far that you've experienced that were not properly coordinated to the municipal groups?
Let's say there's one instance when we informed the municipality, the MDRRMO, that they'll be fetching around 19 LSIs. And then when they arrive, we found out that there are additional 20 LSIs for that
Wow.
particular
So twice
municipality.
the original number.
Yes, yeah. Especially with the manifestos also. In the manifesto, not all LSIs declare what municipality they're going home to, and then they just write Masbate. So we're in Masbate. So that's a challenge. Imagine if you know you're fetching 20, so you'll have a specific vehicle for 20 persons, still implementing social distancing, and then you have a double of the number that you're expecting.
Right. Okay. So once they're able to secure all of the documents, they make all the coordination with the local government units, then they go and travel to Masbate. There, when they get to the ports, they go through screening.
Yes, they have a health assessment done by our provincial health office before they are allowed to disembark.
To disembark. And then after that, the group, the LGU that fetches them will bring them straight to their respective towns or municipalities. And from there, they will be quarantined
That's right, for 14 days.
for 14 days. Can you tell us about the quarantine facilities? What do you normally use as quarantine facilities?
At the municipality level, they're using the evacuation centers. They're using schools, and then some of them have used their auditoriums, their coliseums, their covered gymnasiums. What else? Barangay halls, you name it. Because of the surge of individuals, any facility that you can use to as quarantine facility. Hotels also, resorts, they're being used as quarantine facilities.
So I could imagine it's going to be quite a challenge for somebody returning to the province to be staying in this, well, and at least those that are not in the hotels. It's going to be a struggle staying for 14 days in a quarantine facility.
Yes, it's really, it's not easy. It's not easy being like in an evacuation center for 20 or for 14 days. That's why we're really requesting for a scheduled entry of LSI, so that we'll be able to, let's say if you have allotted hotels in one municipality, at least when they graduate, you'll be able to accommodate another batch. Or if not,
Okay,
then
right.
you're forced to find other quarantine facilities, which is no longer as comfortable as hotels or as resorts.
Right. You mentioned, Sir Juni, that it's the local government unit, the municipalities who are in charge of fetching the LSI from the initial port of entry, going back to their municipalities. What happens if the LGU couldn't fetch them, or for some strange reason they're not able to?
Sometimes the province provides a temporary holding hotels for the vulnerable sectors, but most of them, they have to spend the night inside the ro vessels, or the tents or the ports, because they're not allowed to go to um, go to their homes directly without being fetched by their LGUs.
Right.
Otherwise, the community would actually usually when someone goes out without coordination and being fetched by LGUs, the community actually complains
So that's an
of
additional
this.
burden on the part of the PDRMO. Aside from doing all of this monitoring and checks in the ports, you need to also provide facilities for quarantine for those that will not be accommodated by the LGU by the other LGUs.
That's right. That's right. And to be honest, we're not able to accommodate all of them, or to be able to, budget wise, and then the influx also. So most of them spend their night at the Roro vessels.
Do you think this is typical of other provinces as well?
I believe so. I believe so. Um, in fact, in the Bicol region, we have requested, most of the provinces or all of the provinces have already requested a moratorium for the return of LSIs, at least for those that are being quarantined now, to graduate first before they'll be able to accept another batch of LSIs.
Right.
And that the Bicol IATF has submitted a request already to the National IATF to grant the moratorium.
So to clarify, the moratorium is not forever. It's just for a couple of days.
Yes, we're not refusing entry, but we just wanted a scheduled entry, or us to
Right.
be able to accommodate the next batch when the first batch or the third, fourth batch finishes their 14-day quarantine.
Right. I think that's only logical because the quarantine facilities are not expanding. They're finite. So the number of people you can accommodate at any given time is at a certain limit. And if it goes beyond that, it's going to create problems for everybody.
That's right. And more than the size of the quarantine facilities, it's really the health protocol and how to contain the virus that you have to think of. As I've said earlier, how do you implement social distancing when you have an overcrowded quarantine facility? How do you
Right.
do contact tracing? How do you segregate one batch of LSIs who arrived today from the next batch who will be arriving tomorrow? So most of the municipalities, or some of the municipalities, they are forced to mix LSIs who arrive from different days. Supposedly, you're not supposed to mix them because you never know the exposure of the
Right.
those who arrived yesterday from those who arrived today, and then those who will be arriving tomorrow.
And with the mixing of LSI batches, you run the risk of one not being infected or contaminated, and then getting infected while they were in quarantine facilities waiting for their transit back to their homes. Sir Juni, right now you're no longer COVID free.
That's right.
Well, so
Unfortunately.
can you unfortunately can you tell us more details about this?
For the past 5 months, we've maintained to be COVID free. I believe, we're one of those stricter provinces who really um, put up stricter protocols and guidelines on those who are coming back. Initially, we wanted a no swab, no entry policy um, for the LSIs, or for anyone who's coming back
Wait, let's explain that. What do you mean by no swab, no entry policy?
um, for those who are coming back. We wanted sana for them to undergo a swab test, the
On their
RT-PCR.
own. On their own.
Yes, on their own, on their own. Because the province couldn't afford it
Okay.
anyway, and the municipalities. That's what we wanted initially, but then we have to follow the national guidelines. That it's really hard for some areas to be swabbed, because um, they will not qualify for
Right,
the
right.
RT-PCR test.
Because of the criteria set by the IATF.
Yes, and then of course, because the kits are also limited, the swab tests are
Mhm.
also limited.
Right. So for 5 months you were COVID free, and then what happened?
So for about a month, we have been accepting LSI. So the no swab, no entry didn't push through. So
Okay.
we have no choice but to accept those who have LSIs, who only have travel authority and medical clearances. So we accepted them. And then last Saturday, we were told, or through the DOH Bicol Region CHD, they announced that two of our LSIs turned out to be positive for COVID.
Okay.
They actually came from, both of them came from NCR.
Okay. So they traveled all the way from the National Capital Region to your area, and so I'm guessing because they had to pass through the capital, so all the contract tracing craziness also falls under your team.
That's right. We have to trace back from where they came from, what vehicles they took, going to the port, and then what RoRo vessels they board, and then what ambulance or vehicles they used going to the quarantine facilities. So all of those. Um, that's why actually after that. We again came out with an executive order as recommended by the provincial IATF to quarantine all those who have been exposed to these two patients, including
Your team members.
some of my team members who were exposed to them.
Okay, so that's really a challenge. We see that Sir Al is back. Sir Al, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that you also manage one of the ports of entry into Masbate.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us about this port and your experience so far with the LSIs returning through your port?
Actually, um, it's better than going to the city, to the mainland. We welcome the um, our port as being one of the port of entry because um, our LSIs would usually come from from Manila, and they would go to Puduran Albay. Now from Puduran to our place to the port of Claveria, it will only take an hour with our LGU boat. However, when the provincial government used to require our LSIs, even the recuperating patients and the uppers, to go to from Puduran to still go to Masbate City, then it would take us the least of 3 hours travel time.
Wait, Sir Al, so to clarify, if they go straight to your port, it's 1 hour.
Yeah, if they go to
If
the
they
city of
pass through Masbate City, it will take them
uh
3 hours.
yeah, from our place. Now from Puduran to Masbate, it would also take it 3 to 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, but are you also experiencing a surge of LSIs into your port?
After um the executive order was released declaring Claveria as one of the port of entry, we experienced surge also because Burias Island is composed of two municipalities, the municipality of San Pascual and the municipality of Claveria. So in the first few people would like to go home.
Go ahead,
So
sir.
what I did was that I coordinated with with the DMO of Puder and Albay because we set up a two hotlines wherein our LSIs, the APORs, and the recuperating patients would coordinate because we have to consider the capacities of our quarantine areas or quarantine facilities. Now, from there we have limited the number of the undocumented and uncoordinated passengers because a day before we would fetch the LSI, I would already I would already send to messenger a copy of the passenger manifest that we expect and those that coordinated with our office. And then I requested them to not to allow those who have not coordinated because we cannot accommodate them in our facilities. Although there were a few who would still were able to get in to Pedro and
To
Albay.
clarify, Sir Al, those that did not coordinate previously with your LGU, your prescription is for the Bicol port to keep them?
We can keep them, but when we experience those surge, to stop that that scenario, I coordinated with the, with the Fudran MDREAM MDRMO, and then they would stop. They would not allow at the checkpoint. They would not allow LSIs who did not collaborate with us, coordinate that
Mhm.
with us. So it's sort of ano po, stop the surge. But right now we are so full po.
Full, meaning sa quarantine facilities at the LGU level.
Yeah,
How
at our
many how many people are currently in quarantine there, sir?
right now we had more than 100.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, but they did not come in the same time. So I'm sure I'm thinking they will be leaving in on a staggered basis.
yeah. But the problem is that ano po, the quarantine days, those who arrived June 20, aside from the usual 14 days, the executive order of the governor says that ano po, there would be an additional 7 days at the quarantine facility. So it would be now, instead of the 14 days, it would now be 21, and then plus
Wait, Sir Al, can
another.
you explain? Aside on top of the 14 days, you added 7?
Because of the of an executive order of the president, rather of the governor, rather of the province of Masbate.
Okay,
He
so it's
or
21 days quarantine.
Yes, sir, at the facilities po.
Okay, so that means additional budget and resources required for you guys because Sir Al, Sir Junie, you cover everything, food, everything else that they would need in the quarantine facilities.
In our case, we have to fetch them at Pedro and Albay, and at the time, you have to fetch them at at Masbate, in Masbate rather.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and
Go ahead, sir.
speaking of the additional 7 days, that actually came from the provincial IATF recommendation, because when we met with the health sector, we saw that from the time that the two positive patients arrived, that was in June 20 and 21, we only found out that they were positive. The results came out in June 27. Then we were contact tracing on the 28th, and then on the
A week
29th,
after.
yes, a week after, one of them didn't manifest any symptoms, and he even turned out negative for his rapid test. Um, so what? Almost a week, more than a week, have passed already. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there are quarantine facilities who have mixed their LSIs. So you never really know
Which
who
batch?
among, yes, which was. That's why the health sector recommended that, since we don't know who were exposed to whom, when, and how, so they recommended that there be an additional 1 week quarantine for those who entered the quarantine facilities from June 20 to 29. And then for those also who graduated, for the lack of term, uh, between June 20 and 29, we also recommended for an additional home quarantine. Because let's say, what if you were mixed in the quarantine
Mhm.
facility, you graduated on the 25th,
Go
but you
home.
graduated on the 25th, but on the 20th, those LSIs who were exposed to the patients were mixed in the same quarantine facility or in the same room as with you.
I'm
So you never
confused.
know.
Let's try that
Let's
again. So, for
okay.
example,
It's
they
like this.
came in.
Let's say that the three of us, or let's say 10 of us, we are quarantined in one facility. No,
Mhm.
and then 5 of us graduated,
Okay.
and then 5 remain. And then another five, because of the lack of facility, the new 5, you'll be mixed with another 5, diba? We'll be in the same room again, diba?
Batch 3.
Yeah, batch 3, diba? And then we graduated, and then we went home to the community already.
Mhm.
But the second batch, actually were exposed to the patient.
Okay.
So what if they're infected? and then we went home ready to our community. So that was the
Okay,
nightmare,
got it.
actually. That was the nightmare. So we recommended that even those who graduated should be monitored by the health sector, because you never know if they have been exposed to those LSIs who have been exposed to the patient.
Right, because of the overlap in their
Yes.
stay in the quarantine facilities. Yes, Sir Al, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, in our case, ano po, we classify. So like
Okay.
those from vehicle would occupy this room, and then those from Metro Manila would occupy this room, and then we don't mix actually.
But
Even
can you segregate those that came in yesterday from those that came in today?
we do that in our quarantine facilities po.
Okay, that's good. So with better segregation, you can really track. But even with segregation, there's also the risks that yeah,
There's that possibility of ano po,
right,
interacting.
because they stay in the same quarantine facility, just like what Sir Juni was saying.
Uh,
Even if they already graduated, but in 1 day or 2 days that they were overlapped with the other batches, there's a big chance that they might have also gotten infected. But sir, in Claveria, there's no positive.
yeah, no po.
Okay, so is Claveria now enforcing its own more stringent municipal ordinances to make sure that it doesn't get further to follow the same uh, path as the two other municipalities with the infection?
Yeah, we take actually we take the lead from the ano, from the provincial government po, because the governor is very strict
Right.
and he monitors the municipalities po.
Okay. Okay. Good. I'm pretty sure there are a lot more interesting stories about COVID-19 and the experiences on the ground. But from where you are, Sir Juni, Sir Al, in your capacity, what do you see as the biggest challenge to the local disaster risk reduction management office and the team that's doing this? What is the biggest challenge to you guys?
By that. Um, on the provincial level, it's really right now the balance of the your decisions on your LSIs, your decision on the containment, the infection control, and then the third one also is on the economy. How do you balance your decisions between those three without sacrificing one when you decide for in favor of the other? So that's really the balancing act that's the challenging right now. As I've said yesterday, there seems to be no perfect solution that won't affect the other two.
Right.
Di ba? Sometimes you really just have to decide which aspect would be urgent that you need to put a more stringent measures for now, and then you recalibrate later on in order to be able not to sacrifice the two other sectors. Those sort of things. There's also a challenge because, as we've discussed, there's no end in sight. There's no inside budget wise, um in terms of resources, manpower. You This has been going on for what, almost half a year already. You have the same people working for multiple tasks, and then of course your budget is being depleted. To think that the DRRM fund, which is supposedly intended for the hazards like typhoons and others, have already been depleted, and we haven't entered yet into the typhoon season.
That's sad, right?
So that's those are the challenges that we have, at least on top of mind, that I can mention.
Right. I'm going to go back to what you said, but let's, Sir Al, what about in your case? What are the challenges that you're facing there in Claveria?
Just like what Sir Junior said, budget. Because right now we have used up our 30% quick response fund, and so we have also touched our other budgets like our 20%. We have also, I think, we have used up one fourth of our 20% development fund for COVID as we fight COVID. And then um personnel wise. like in my case, we are only three permanent um we are only three
Staff.
permanent staff in the in the DRM. Good thing that there's this there's this collaboration between the municipal health office and our office, and also the Cleverly District Hospital po, which is being run by by the provincial government.
Right. Sir Al, it appears also that you used up your electricity budget.
No, no, no. We've used up our our quick response. But right now, yeah, because I'm in the part. Yeah, sorry.
There's currently a power outage in your area right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Is this something that's typical during this particular period of the year?
Not really, because po, right now, there's a problem with our with our electricity. It's it's private land, and they're having a problem po, because they're po, they're what's this,
It's an
the ones that
isolated case.
not really,
Oh no.
but the one who's in charge is to come over.
Okay. So, see, these are all the challenges that normally you run into when you're in the field. On top of all the pressures that you are trying to manage, you're also going to experience one of these things that happen at random. To your point, Sir Juni, I like what you said yesterday when we were preparing for this, that to your point that there are so many decisions to be made, and there's no right approach, especially you mentioned that everything is totally new for everybody.
Yes.
We've never come across a situation like this.
That's right. That's right. No one has experienced pandemic yet. I mean, um, and we haven't actually, well, not just on the provincial level, but even on the national level, we haven't really focused on a pandemic contingency plan. Not one of us uh, did. But one thing, as I was saying, no, parang with the VUCA world, or now that we don't know what's happening, we have no experience over those, the pandemic. Um, it really helps that uh, we were able to be with the EMDRCM. We have a pool of experts, of professors that you can call, and then you can lessons that you can refer from
You
when
said
you're not.
call. You said call. Can you explain?
The what? The call?
You said call. There's a
Sorry.
pool of professors that you can call. This is
Yeah.
something that happened.
Yes, there's a pool of professors and even former graduates, or alumni who you can consult with, especially
No,
when you're at a
I
dilemma.
raised that you mentioned yesterday that during this particular pandemic, Dr. Kenneth Hartigan-Go, the program director of the EMDRCM, is a phone call away that you
Yeah,
oftentimes would consult.
yes, I would chat him, or would ask for help, especially on the health sector, or if he knows somebody somewhere. Uh, it's really a big help. The network of experts and people that you needed, it's with us. I mean, with the cohort and with the school, it's really a big help, especially now that we're talking of, you know, a collaboration of all the agencies involved, and even on a provincial level you're talking about collaboration with the national agencies that you need to constantly do, coordinate with. It's really a big help, that even on a provincial or a municipal level, you're talking of national and global in terms of network, in terms of policies, in terms of references, because we're all interconnected. I mean, every decisions, policies that's being crafted at the national level, we're all being affected. Every concerns that we have in the provinces, it's a national concern. Now that this is a pandemic, so it's it's a big help. The learnings, how we apply them to what we do now, and then some of those, as we mentioned, nga, di ba, that some of those we already know and we're already practicing, but it's just a matter of putting names to what we do and then
Right.
confirming that what you do is right or wrong or could be improved. Those sort of things. It's really a big help. There were times when you were questioning or some of us maybe are questioning if we did the right decision of
By
being a part
enrolling.
of enrolling here, or if it's just an added responsibility or an but now that we're experiencing firsthand this pandemic and being a frontliner, it's really a big help.
Right. Thank you for that, Sir Juni. Sir Al, what about you in your case?
Oh, definitely. Our AIM experience is a big help. Like the BL and design thinking and everything.
BL refers to
Yeah, bridging
Bridge
leadership.
leaders.
bridging
Yeah.
leadership, just for the sake of those who might not be familiar with
It's
the
okay. I'm
acronyms.
sorry.
Okay, so
Yeah.
bridging leadership is one. And can you share an example how you've used it, Sir Al, in Claveria?
Like one has to really listen. When I
Okay.
usually go to when I really go to when I visit the quarantine facilities, I I talk to the LSIs, but I keep my distance, of course, the social distancing one that's being required. So I listen to their stories, and there you would really be in a you would realize that sometimes, although we are so tired, but still we are still blessed because we are faced, although we face the same difficulties, but the level is not. For one, LSIs would experience the difficulties and especially the discrimination. In fact,
Okay.
when there was one LSI that graduated, and I had to, because that LSI was very honest enough to admit that they don't have any money to go back to the barangay. So I had to, I had to deliver him. I had to up to his barangay, and then immediately after, instead of being welcomed, he actually experienced discrimination. In fact, just a few minutes na tumalikod ako, nagsuntukan sila magkapatid.
Okay. So after you left, they got into a fist fight with the brother.
We are with the brother because the brother shouted at the LSI that you don't come near our mother and father because ano po, of the disease.
Oh, okay.
So that's very sad, di ba? Yung parang they have already experienced the difficulty, and then they have been quarantined for a while, and then of course you would expect, like, if it's in our case, we would expect that we will be welcomed by our
By our
family.
family, especially.
Yeah, especially by our family.
So I could imagine traveling all that far distance and then going through the hurdles of quarantine and then going home to get that kind of welcome or non-welcome from a family member. That's quite devastating. So you're saying, Sir Al, that with the bridging leadership model that we've learned in class, the listening to these stories helps reinforce also how you go about handling other
Yeah.
LSIs in that passes through your jurisdiction.
Yes, Wally. And also one more thing. When I was very stressed, I tried calling AIM. So I called Sir Paul and Mama Eileen,
Hmm.
and they connected me with our guidance counselors, and it really helped, especially
Wow,
the few weeks. Yeah, that's true.
that's nice to hear. Paul is the school head of the
Yeah,
Stephen Swillig School of Development Management, and
Apo,
Erlene is the program coordinator for EMDRCM.
Apo, they have connected me with our guidance counselors, and after a day, our guidance counselor called me up, and it really helped.
That's nice to hear. So I guess especially you guys, you are in the front lines. I could only imagine the difficulties and the challenges and the stress to you and your families that you have to really go into this. relatively new and uncertain reality of managing COVID-19. So while we're nearing the end of our live stream, I have several questions that we need to ask. First, given the experiences of the pandemic, would you say that Claveria, in your case, Sir Al, or Masbate, in your case, Sir Juni, is resilient?
Laveria was mentioned first. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Claveria. Let's start with Claveria. Okay, in your assessment, Sir uh, Al, having experienced the pandemic firsthand, having gone through Ursula and Tisoy and all the other disasters in the past, would you say that at this point in time, is Claveria resilient?
Honestly, it's not. Resilience is still a dream for us.
Okay.
Actually, right now we are blessed. I guess it's a blessing that we are an island municipality. That's why it's quite difficult going in here. So that one is a blessing because ano po, the distance we are segregated from the mainland.
Okay. So it's work in progress. It's still a dream. Okay.
Yeah, it's still a dream. Although I have come to realize that we really have to communicate for us to gain the support of the community. Actually, right now, the community support it's very apparent.
Right. Okay. So good point. So it's still the challenge of building the resilience by really leveraging on the community's involvement through constant communication. Sir Juni.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Al. Even if Bicol region is a hazard-prone region or province in case of Masbate, um, there really the hazards that we experience are changing really fast, and we're not able to adapt with it or be resilient with it faster enough. um though I'm hopeful, I'm hopeful, especially with transformational leadership and all that we've learned. Um we uh it's really a challenge for the disaster managers and for all those who are involved in managing all the pandemics, the hazards the disasters that we experience. But the challenge there is really on being able to reach out, as you said, I'll have said, communities, communication. The challenge is how we can bring them to work together. Though we have worked together in the past, and then we've but there's uh, a great room for improvement and that we all need to do and to work on. Bridging leadership, we've mentioned earlier, we all have a stake in all of this. Each of one have our own interests, have our own missions that we need to do, but we need to come together. We need to come together to be able to battle all of this and eventually be more or be resilient, that we will be able to bounce back, not just bounce back but bounce back better. um, I hope this pandemic is will not just remain as a crisis but an opportunity for all of us to really learn on what needs to be prioritized, what needs to be done, what needs to be focused on, um, not just for the government, but for all sectors involved. The private sector has a lot of help that they can give. Um, they just need to be tapped properly by the government, and for the government also to be able to reach out to the other sectors also to get them involved. Um, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that with this great, I don't know if we'll call it great, but this crisis will have a great opportunity for for all of us to learn and to do what really needs to be done. And for the frontliners also, um, after 6 months of battling the pandemic, being at the front lines, sometimes really have to look into um, deeper into to the missions that we want to do, why we're here, why we're doing this. I mean, there are times that you wanted to complain that, or you're bombarded with complaints from the others. But when you think that disaster management is really what we're inclined to do, or our mission for the community and all, sometimes things get lighter and bearable and manageable
Mhm.
all of us. And it's
Okay,
and
wow.
I'm yeah,
Go ahead,
and
sir.
we're grateful, by the way, as a frontliner, a frontliner, we're grateful to the spirit of um gratitude of the people, the frontliners. Well, not because I'm a frontliner, but we've seen a lot of heroes in our frontliners now. We've also seen a lot of people helping our frontliners. Um, we still don't know how this would end. We still don't know how you know we can the pandemic would end. But as a frontliner, I manifest that we are grateful for all the help that each one is giving us. But we're also manifesting that we still need those help, not just from one sector, from private sector, but from everyone. We all need to cooperate in our own little way to be able to um, really win over this pandemic.
Right. Well said. Oh my God, we will use that as a marketing material for future cohorts. So I will just reference what Sir Al said about using communication to really rally the community, and what you've said, turning this as opportunity to continue building on the collaboration that at the end of the day is something that will pull us through this and other pandemics or disasters in the future. One last question that we need to address because it was required by our producer. And we're supposed to answer the title question for this episode. How are disaster risks managed in Claveria and in Masbate?
Like in our case, in Claveria, disasters. Um, well, it's always ano po, it's always preparedness. Do count. Like you really need to prepare. However, with this pandemic, it almost challenges everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Like the situation is very fluid. Policies from the national government down would like you had a meeting today, and then after then later tonight there's already a change in policy, and then you have again to redo what you have already planned. Also, one more thing, there's really a need to there's a really need to get everybody, almost everybody on board. Right now we are experiencing collaboration across different agencies of the government. Good thing that the different agencies, our LGU, within the LGU and the national government agencies are working together, and even the provincial government, of course, with journeying around. We are trying to do our best. We are aligning everything, all our efforts, and we are as if this is really a whole of government approaches and all of society's approaches coming true po. Especially with the community being having a heightened awareness of the situation, so they would really cooperate. And then a while ago, Sir Juni mentioned about being grateful because you know what, Sir Wally, even if the people seem are having difficulty, they would deliver or send us food, and that's a sign of a community support and appreciation from the community po, that we serve.
Okay, so I'm hearing from you, Sir Al, preparation, collaboration with everybody, every stakeholders in the community, and the constant need to really move as the whole organization, the whole community approach in really building the and managing disasters. Sir
Yes.
Juni?
To be honest, I don't really know how to answer the question. How how is it being managed? But what comes on top of mind for me now is that in addition to what Al said, right now we're really trying to, or at least the provincial level, we're really trying to decide on, because what's stuck in my mind actually in one of our lessons, in one of our classes in EMDRCM, is that our professor said, it was Prof. Arnil, I think, who said that the quality of the decision we make is based on the quality of the data that we have. Sometimes we're forced to decide on because of a few noisy ones, or without really backing it up with data. Like right now with the LSIs, it's really a challenge when it comes to the data that we have, because the decisions that we're going to do should really be data driven, needs based, those sort of things. We have experts to consult to. We have data analysts, science based decisions, those sort of things. We are in the 21st century already, that we're not even should be looking at science-based and data-based decisions already. No matter how you collaborate with each other, no matter how you communicate with each other, but if the data that you have or the decisions that you're making will not be based on, right data, you'd still go, I mean, diba? Yeah,
It's still going to be problematic if
yes.
the decision is not based on concrete, reliable, accurate data. And with all the technology, it's you at your disposal. It would be crazy not to leverage on the data to make your decision. So, with that, we would like to thank our distinguished gentlemen from the province of Masbate, from Claveria, and from the provincial government of Masbate, Sir Juni and Sir Al. You guys are inspiration to me and to the rest of the cohort, and I guess to the rest of the people who look at you for all the things that you shared, all the experiences and the passion that you bring into doing the things that you do. And Sir Juni, I am not ashamed to say this, you are heroes in my book and in the book of so many other people. So we wish that you continue to remain healthy and strong and passionate about what you do. And we wish that also that your families are protected and cared for, and they continue to be blessed with the patience, knowing the the hours that you put into the work that you do. So last words from Sir Juni, Sir Al. Message to other people who might be inclined to go into EMDRCM.
All right, I'll go ahead. For those who are inclined to go into EMDRCM, sometimes there are things that you think you cannot relate to. There will be times when that's right. I mean, all of us can and have said that before we started with EMDRCM. But after experiencing disasters, pandemics, like with pandemic, no one's spared. No one is spared. I've heard classmates who have been uh, manifesting that they cannot relate to EMDRCM because of the field that they are into. So not just disaster management, but in any field that you are in. And now those people, those classmates who have said that are some of our frontliners and some who have been really contributing to the pandemic measures that we're doing. EMDRCM is not just for government DRRM employees; it's for everyone. Actually, it's for everyone. Um, Disasters are local. Uh, everyone when a disaster hits, no one's spared if it's in your area. You cannot say that I'm in the private sector, I'm in this field or wherever. Everyone's spared. So for those who would like to check into EMDRCM, this is very helpful for each, or for everyone, not just for disaster management. You learn a lot. um, you learn a lot in life.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Juni. Sir Al.
Yeah. I would like to say that ano po, it's not only the bank that says they find ways. but through the EMDSPM, and of course AIM. Once you enter, ano po, once you experience being a student at AIM, you will really, ano po, you will be very, very confident in finding ways,
Okay.
especially in the disaster area po.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Al. Thank you, Sir Juni. And this is my answer to that question. How do they manage disaster risk in Claveria and in Masbate as a province? They manage it with determination and conviction and passion of these great gentlemen and their teams who really put in the hours and the hard work. Thank you very much, Sir Juni and Sir Al, and to all of you who have been watching us for the past hour. Thank you and keep safe. This has been another edition of EMDRCM Live. Have a nice evening and enjoy the weekend. Keep safe, everybody. Good night.
Yeah, keep safe, keep safe. Good night, good night.
It's not just simply being able to bounce back. It's actually being able to bounce back better.